I obtained a bottle of magical potion. Whoever drinks it will fall hopelessly in love with me. Without a moment's hesitation, I tipped my head back and drank it all. This time, I chose to love myself. Love you forever. See you tomorrow. In my previous life, after my husband Ethan had an affair, I unexpectedly obtained a bottle of potion. A small transparent vial filled with blue liquid. A line of faded writing was stuck to the bottle: "Whoever drinks this water will fall hopelessly in love with the one who gave it." Like clutching at the last straw. As if mad, I wagered all my hope on this bottle of mysterious potion. I slipped the potion into Ethan's coffee. The effect was immediate. He gradually distanced himself from the person he was cheating with and refocused his attention on me. He began to remember our anniversaries and brought flowers home. At night, holding me as we fell asleep, he would whisper those long-missed sweet nothings. It was as if we had truly returned to the days of passionate love. We returned to being the couple everyone envied. Everyone thought Ethan loved me very much. Only I knew his love for me did not come from his choice. It came from mine. I was the one who made him drink the potion that made him fall in love with me. When he hugged me and kissed me, my mind always went to those indecent intimate photos of him. When he whispered to me tenderly, I found myself wondering whether he had ever said the same sweet words to someone else. Worse still, fear followed me like a shadow. Whenever he spoke with other women for work. Whenever his phone screen lit up. Whenever someone from his past flirtations appeared. My heart would set off alarms. Has the medicine worn off? Is he going to leave again? I became neurotic, so stranger to myself. Sensitive, suspicious, jumpy at every little thing. A fleeting lapse of attention from Ethan, a slightly flat reply, any of it could send me spiraling, inventing doubts about his love for me. Later, I became pregnant. The joy lasted only a moment, immediately followed by a tremendous fear. If one day the drug's effect truly wore off, and Ethan reverted to the man who despised me, what would I do? What would become of my child? Resting my hand on the still flat belly, I realized for the first time, I was living inside a beautiful yet fragile cage of my own making. I began losing handfuls of hair. Long-standing anxiety wrapped itself tightly around me, nibbling away at my nerves bit by bit. Even when Ethan comforted me, I could not, as a matter of course, lose myself in the warmth he offered. The essence of love is the surrender of free will. It is the lucid downfall of two free souls after their chance encounter. And I had already poisoned that possibility. And Ethan casually said, "Honey, it seems like you have a few more fine lines at the corners of your eyes lately." Such flippant words were enough to break me in an instant. I couldn't focus, made mistake after mistake at work, and felt like a string about to snap. In the end, after the continual emotional upheaval, the child I had never met left me. Ethan held me and whispered comfort. But in that moment what surged into my chest wasn't gratitude, it was remorse. I regretted it. I regretted that I'd begged like a beggar, using tricks to hold on to someone whose heart had long since changed. So this time, when the familiar blue potion appeared before me again, I didn't hesitate for a moment. I twisted off the cap, tipped my head back, and poured the entire contents into my mouth. The liquid was slightly astringent as it slid down my throat. Rather than exhaust myself trying to win back a cheating man, I might as well love myself properly. Love yourself first. See you tomorrow. After downing that miraculous potion, I stood quietly for a while, feeling for changes in my body. Seems like nothing different. Remembering the way that potion affected Ethan in my last life, I had no doubt about its authenticity. Maybe some changes simply aren't visible to the naked eye. Lost in thought, my stomach suddenly gurgled. Right, I hadn't eaten a thing since I was reborn. I stepped out of the bedroom, and under the warm living room lights a whole table of sumptuous dishes came into view. I paused, then it came back to me. The moment I was reborn to was precisely the anniversary of Ethan and my 6th wedding year. How did I spend this day in my last life? I dressed carefully and rushed to Ethan's company. In full view of everyone, I begged him to come home for dinner that night. When I left his office, the looks people gave me were full of ridicule and pity. But at the time I was overjoyed because Ethan had agreed, too happy to notice anyone else. When I got home, I prepared a table full of dishes, everything Ethan liked. Pickled fish, potatoes stewed with beef brisket, steamed sea bass, stir-fried seasonal vegetables, garlic vermicelli, steamed seafood. I pulled out all the stops, trying to win Ethan's stomach with my cooking. Looking at the spread on the table, I even felt a flicker of pride, imagining the look of appreciation or emotion on his face when he opened the door. And the result? I sat all night on a cold chair. Ethan spent a blissful evening with his lover, his gift to me for our 6th anniversary. The long collapse that night drove me to finally use that vial. I couldn't bear the lonely waiting any longer. Now that I think about it. Lonely for what? Don't I still have my old self? Now, looking at the same table of dishes, the feeling was entirely different. No expectation, no anxiety. Only the most basic need remained: I was hungry. I took a bottle of reserve red wine from the wine cabinet, one I had bought earlier at a private winery. I poured it into a crystal glass, the dark red liquid gleamed under the light. I took a sip, rich fruity aromas unfurled in my mouth. When I finished, I couldn't help but click my tongue twice. What a fine wine. Old G, I really have not mistreated you. My gaze returned to the spread on the table. I couldn't help but frown. Steamed, blanched, low salt and low oil, since when have these been the dishes I love? To accommodate Ethan's tastes, I, a native of Sichuan Chongqing, hadn't even made a single proper spicy dish. I slapped my thigh. Right, who should be accommodating him now? It was past 8 in the evening when a surge of energy hit me. I reheated the sauerkraut fish, poured on sizzling chili oil and a generous helping of numbing Sichuan peppercorns. I reseasoned the steamed seafood, piled on a thick layer of minced garlic and bright red chopped chili. That still didn't seem enough, so I made a plate of my favorite spicy chicken. A table of dishes, red and blazing hot. The scent of heat filled the entire kitchen. I refilled my glass of red wine and sat back down at the table. A slice of fish soaked in chili oil went into my mouth, so thrilling it made me want to stomp my feet. Next came a shrimp covered in garlic and chili, the salty, spicy kick slammed straight into my crown. The spicy chicken was charred, crispy, and tingling, paired with a gulp of wine, it was pure exhilaration. This feeling, absolutely ecstatic. Just as I was eating with gusto, sweat forming on my brow from the spice, the phone lying beside me suddenly lit up with a new message. It was Ethan's assistant. Also one of Ethan's mistresses. "Sis, you haven't seen my post yet, have you?" I picked up a piece of spicy chicken, popped it into my mouth, chewed leisurely, and casually opened her post. The latest update had been posted 10 minutes ago. In the photo, 2 hands were clasped, fingers interlaced, the background was that upscale restaurant I loved most. The flirtatious atmosphere needed no explanation. I recognized Ethan's hand at a glance, after all, I had placed my own hand against it countless times. Long fingers, pronounced knuckles. There was even the faint mark of a wedding ring that hadn't completely faded. I gave it a like with a blank face. Soon after, that post was gone. Moments later, a new update popped up. "Oh my boyfriend just saw the post I put up on a whim. He says I'm punished and can't sleep tonight, so embarrassed." I put my phone down. There was indeed a faint stinging sensation at my chest. My once hearty appetite had been somewhat affected. It wasn't because of that couple. It was because of myself. I put my chopsticks down and, addressing the air, began a stern self-reflection. "Old G, you worked so hard cooking, made a whole table of dishes that suit your taste, and now because of someone else's post you can't eat. Are you being fair to the self who labored so long? Fair to this good bottle of liquor? Fair to your own stomach? Eat up quickly. Look at you, you've gotten so thin that a gust of wind could knock you over. Don't you know you've almost lost 80 Gene? Ethan's over there cuddling his little lover, all lovey-dovey, and you, here you are mourning the food like it's the end of the world? Old G, you can't treat yourself like this, okay? After that little lecture to myself, I took a deep breath and pushed down the ache in my chest. I picked up a big piece of fish, put it in my mouth, and chewed heartily. TCH, 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 smells amazing. That's the spirit, old G. We'd almost finished eating when the phone on the table vibrated again. It was my mother calling. I had just pressed the answer button and hadn't had a chance to speak when a torrent of scolding hit me. Claire. What do you mean Ethan cheated? Can't you turn a blind eye and live? Which capable man doesn't fool around outside? I don't care what methods you use, cry, beg, pretend you don't know, under no circumstances can you let Ethan, that golden son-in-law, go. Do you hear me? If you keep making a scene like this, and he really divorces you, what will you do? He's a big boss now, an entrepreneur. You just need to cling to the title of Mrs. tightly. Always thinking you can possess him completely, have you lost your mind? Ethan is so outstanding, isn't it normal for him to have a few lovers? You be a good Mrs. Shao and enjoy your blessings, why worry so much? I held my phone, my fingertips going cold, a sense of absurdity lodged in my chest. It was probably because what I had done earlier reached my parents' ears. Actually, I hadn't done anything excessive. At least to me, compared to what Ethan had done to me, it was nothing. It was simply that on the day I found out he was cheating, I smashed the car he had bought for his mistress. All I had to do was storm into his company and, in front of his employees, smash up his office. Or find out he was attending a charity gala with his mistress. I would wear my loudest red dress and go, and in full view of everyone, deliver a resounding slap to both him and the woman at his side. I thought that by humiliating him, by leaving him nowhere to hide, he would understand that betrayal comes with a price. But I was wrong. In his world, in his circle, infidelity was an unspoken privilege. No one would blame him for it, they would only look at me with pity or derision, then pat Ethan on the shoulder and advise, get divorced, why bother marrying a madwoman? I didn't want a divorce. So my madness became his excuse to escalate his affairs. He started staying out all night, deliberately leaving traces of other women to provoke me. He couldn't control me, so he embellished these stories and told my parents. He knew all too well their weak spots and beliefs, using them to pressure me, discipline me, and force me to face reality. So when the phone call of admonishment came again, the anger and grievance I'd been holding in for so long finally erupted. I shouted into the receiver, sharp and cutting, what do you mean it's normal to have a few lovers? He cheated, he betrayed our marriage, and now he's in the right? You don't know a damn thing, the voice on the other end suddenly rose. You damned girl, you're nothing but a lowlife. Being able to hook up with a man like Ethan is a blessing earned over 8 lifetimes. Don't be ungrateful. I'll tell you this, if you dare make a scene with him again, if you dare bring up divorce and your grievances, we'll act as if you were never born. Your father and I will consider you dead. What rotten luck. Had a perfectly good life and had to ruin it. After saying that, they hung up. My hand trembled as I set the phone on the table. My body shook uncontrollably. My chest felt as if a massive stone were pressing down on it, heavy and stifling, leaving me breathless. 2 lifetimes. In the last one, I listened and chose to endure. In this life, I had thought rebirth would be a release, a fresh start. But the blade from the person closest to me still found the same old wound with precision. It even cut deeper. 2 lifetimes worth of grievances, the loneliness of being misunderstood, being accused with venomous words by those closest to me, all the emotions surged up, clogging my throat. Everyone said Ethan was young and promising. Men, especially wealthy men, having a few women around them was perfectly normal. But who remembered? When he first started his business, hitting wall after wall, the cash flow about to collapse. It was I who took out every penny I had saved from years of scrimping at work and silently placed it before him. I comforted him, if it's lost, it's lost. I can earn it back. Back then we squeezed into a rented room eating instant noodles, and he held my hand, his eyes brighter than the stars, saying he would never let me down in this lifetime. I lifted my wineglass and, barefoot, walked to the floor-to-ceiling window. Outside the window the city at night spilled light and color, dazzling like a river of stars. Ethan's lover's provocative posts didn't make me sad. My parents' repeated "for your own good" sounded like a dull knife, slowly cutting at my heart. My eyes suddenly burned fiercely. I tilted my head back and blinked hard, trying to drive the heat from them. I lifted the glass and drank it all in one go. After the spice came a lingering, bittersweet aftertaste. If I mistook the person, then so be it. Admitting that my judgment was poor back then isn't that hard. It's all right. In my past life I was bewitched, tying all my worth to a single man. I lost myself and was utterly defeated. In this life, I just won't make the same stupid mistake again. Old G, I murmured to the traffic-streaked scene outside the window, my voice hoarse, each word soft and deliberate. I give you permission to be hurt in matters of the heart. I give you permission to bare your heart only to discover you loved the wrong person. I give you permission to feel wronged and want to cry because your family doesn't understand. I give you permission to cry, to collapse, to in this moment be simply very sad and very fragile. When I finished, I hugged my knees tight. As if finally freed from every shackle, I let myself weep aloud. My cries echoed through the empty living room, hoarse, unpleasant, but utterly real. I don't know how long I cried, until I was exhausted, left only with soft sobs. I lifted my head, my face streaked with tears, my voice nasal. If you want to cry, cry. It's no big deal. I won't hate you for it. Right, old G. Outside the window, the city's lights still gleamed. Just as I was about to be swallowed by grief, my phone rang. I trembled all over, as if waking from a deep sleep. Almost stumbling, I lunged for the desk, fumbling to grab the phone. The screen's light stung my swollen, reddened eyes. I didn't want anyone to hear how disheveled I was. I sniffed hard, wiped the tears off my face haphazardly with my sleeve, then grabbed the glass on the table and gulped down a big mouthful of water. After clearing my throat, I pressed the answer button. Hello? Claire. The voice on the other end was my friend's. Did you hear? The forecast says there might be auroras near Mo soon. It's a rare chance, want to go see? If you could shoot a series of aurora masterpieces, that would be amazing. The aurora. As a photographer, chasing and freezing the splendor of the sky is both a professional instinct and a kind of calling. Partly to prove my photographic skill, partly to record a beauty that vanishes in an instant. In my previous life, I missed the aurora and many other beautiful sights because I clung to my relationship with Ethan. At the thought, my heart clenched. Fine. I almost blurted out, my voice bright and urgent. I'll go. I'll book the tickets right now. After hanging up, I sprang into action. Booking the flights, confirming the itinerary, all done in one breath. Then I rushed back to my room and began stuffing my thick coat, thermal wear, camera, and tripod into the suitcase as fast as I could. The whole flurry of activity was so quick that my tears couldn't keep up. Until a hot tear landed on the back of my hand. I scrambled to pack while sniffling, my voice thick with a heavy nasal tone as I tried to comfort myself. Old me, look, last life I missed it. This time I can't miss it again, right? These next few days might be tough, we'll have to hurry, we'll be cold, but old me, let's hold our heads high and capture the most beautiful aurora. Then I'll buy you that bag you've always wanted, okay? I planned the future with fierce determination even as I wiped away tears in a sorry, disheveled way. In the corner of my eye I caught my reflection in the mirror. Eyes swollen and red, hair a mess, yet my hands and feet kept stuffing down jackets and camera batteries into the suitcase. The sight was honestly a little ridiculous, and a little heartbreaking. But I knew I was moving forward. Even if it was while crying, I was still moving. Shortly after 5 in the morning, before dawn, I was already on the plane. Outside, the cabin was swallowed by pitch-black night. Inside, the lights were dim and most people were catching up on sleep. I, however, couldn't sleep at all. I stared out the window, lost in thought. A little past 8, the plane landed in Heilongjiang. A sharp, dry air hit me in the face. After leaving the airport, a friend and I ate a steaming bowl of the local specialty noodles, and warmth spread through me from the inside out. My friend couldn't help but blurt out, "I thought you wouldn't come with me this time. After all, when I invited you before, you always said you had to stay home and watch your husband to stop other women from seducing him." I swallowed the last mouthful of noodle soup, sighed with satisfaction, and said calmly, "My career is more important than any man." My friend's eyes went wide as saucers. She scrutinized me from head to toe, doubt written all over her face, as if she'd heard the most fantastical tale. "Hearing that come out of your mouth. I just can't believe it. Are you possessed by something?" I tugged at the corner of my mouth and said nothing. Even I couldn't quite believe how naturally that sentence had slipped out of me. I instinctively fished out my phone and unlocked it. The screen lit up, and Ethan's chat window was still showing the message I sent yesterday afternoon. "Honey, make sure you're back for our 6th anniversary. I planned a surprise and cooked your favorite." I scrolled up, a dense string of green bubbles filled the screen. Almost all of them were my one-sided questions, shares, and waiting. By comparison, his replies were brief and perfunctory. I turned the screen off and shoved the phone back into my pocket. Forget it. Why waste even a sliver of thought on someone who doesn't belong to me? After dinner, my friend and I boarded the green sleeper train to Mo. For a full 17 hours I leaned against the window, watching the boundless, flowing snowfields outside. The monotonous clack of the tracks and the ever-receding winter landscape. My taut nerves gradually relaxed, and I began to drift off to sleep. By the time the train arrived, it was already the dead of night. Getting off, the biting air made me shiver uncontrollably. The ground was sealed under a solid blanket of snow. We hauled our luggage and checked into a guest house we had arranged in advance. We slept straight through until the afternoon. My friend and I set out for the Arctic village. I wore my thickest down coat, wrapped in scarf and hood. I looked like a lumbering bear, yet even that couldn't ward off the cold that seeped into my bones. The cold air inhaled into my lungs, bringing sharp stabs. My knees pressed against a hand warmer, but there was still a faint creak when I walked. The companions were a young couple I'd met on the train. The girl was lively and laughed easily, the boy was steady and considerate, and they hadn't stopped talking the whole way. "I heard making a wish on the Aurora is super lucky," the girl said, hooking her arm through her boyfriend's, her eyes sparkling. The boy looked down at her and answered gently, "If we can see the Aurora, we'll be happy for the rest of our lives." They nestled close, their breath mingling in the air as puffs of white. Their faces were full of longing and sweetness. The smiles were pure and radiant, like two small, warm flames in this frozen expanse. I watched them without envy, without bitterness. Only a faint, genuine happiness. How wonderful. In this world, someone should be this happy. And I, here for myself. Friends. An old self. This, too, is quite good. We arrived at the observation point in the North Pole village. The snow was ankle-deep beneath our feet. The sky had long since gone utterly black, yet this stretch of snow was crowded with figures. Most of them, like us, carried cameras and bore a stubborn determination to get the shot. Time ticked by, minute after minute, nearing dawn, but the anticipated veil of light never appeared. Only a blizzard came. The heavy snow stung faces, and vision grew ever more blurred. Many could not bear it and began cursing as they packed up their gear and turned to leave. The crowd thinned. My friend and I did not move. We pressed close together, stubbornly facing the wind and snow, tilting our heads to stare at the ink-black sky. Deep down we still hoped for a miracle. The couple who had come together held each other tightly amid the raging blizzard. I caught sight of them out of the corner of my eye and felt a stir in my chest. Almost instinctively I raised my camera and adjusted the settings. Through the whirling curtain of snow, I aimed at them. Click. The shutter sounded softly, freezing that moment of mutual closeness in the storm. They noticed my lens, their faces, reddened from the cold, broke into radiant smiles, and they even struck a playful yeah pose for me. Just as their smiles were at their brightest and their fingers formed the gesture, The sky above was suddenly torn as if by an invisible hand, the darkness ripping open. A streak, then another, a blaze of flame-like red auroras unfurled across the pitch-black night. They weren't like the cool, ghostly green auroras I'd seen online. These were fierce, rich, and full of life, red as if a phoenix were beating its wings, displaying the splendor of its rebirth. It's red. It's a red aurora. The couple cried out in rapture, leaping and dancing through the snow. The boy, trembling with excitement, reached into his pocket, pulled out a velvet box, and dropped to one knee in the snow. He wanted to open the box and take out the diamond ring. But his fingers were already numb from the cold, and he was wearing thick mittens, clumsily tugging at them several times. He couldn't get them off. The two of them watched each other fumble, exchanged a glance, and suddenly burst into laughter. The sound cut through the wind and snow, full of pure joy and love. I couldn't help laughing with them, though my eyes grew slightly warm. I looked up at the dazzling aurora before me. So beautiful it took my breath away. The red bands of light shifted across the sky like a cascading waterfall. I quickly adjusted the camera and took a few shots of this rare spectacle. Then I put the camera down. For the rest of the time, I chose to feel it with my own eyes. How beautiful. Suddenly I remembered a long time ago, when Ethan and I were still crammed into a rental, eating instant noodles, I had pointed at a magazine photo of the aurora and said that once we had money, we absolutely had to go see it together. Back then I felt this was a dream that needed two people to fulfill. Now I stand here and see a red aurora more magnificent than any in those magazine pictures. A voice inside me softly said to myself, "Old G, do you like it? You must really like a scene like this. From now on, let's look at more of them, okay?" The aurora didn't last long. After about 10 minutes, that brilliant red began to fade and dissipate. As if a brief, splendid dream. A friend leaned over to look at the photos on my camera and couldn't help but let out a wow. "Claire, you really are the best at catching the moment and composing a shot. I've never seen a photographer like you." Her eyes glittered. "With your talent, it's such a shame you don't go shoot the great landscapes of our motherland more often." I looked at the red aurora frozen in the camera, smiled, my voice calm and steady, "Not a shame. From now on, I'll shoot often. Wherever there's beauty, remember to call me." My friend froze. After a long moment she gave my shoulder a heavy pat, her eyes reddening. "That's really wonderful. You finally don't have to keep orbiting that man of yours anymore." I returned to the inn, my numb, frozen body finally feeling warmth. At that moment, my phone, which usually had no signal, started buzzing non-stop. I took off my heavy coat and burrowed into the warm blankets. I opened my phone. Ethan had, unusually, sent me a string of messages. "Claire, why aren't you home? Why is there only leftover food in the house? What on earth are you doing all day? Not replying? Want a divorce?" When I still didn't react, he sent several more messages. "Not replying? You think ignoring me like this will get my attention? How childish. If you don't cook, fine, there are plenty of people who will. See, tastes 100 times better than yours." A photo was attached below. I opened it. In the picture, Ethan grinned broadly at the camera, smiling unusually brightly. Behind him, at the counter, a slender back tied into an apron was busily working. Even without seeing his face straight on, I could tell, it's his assistant. I looked at the photo and the first, most instinctive thought rose up: why is Ethan so greasy? His expression was like overnight oil smeared across the screen. So slick it made me uneasy. Thinking that, a sudden pang of guilt rose in me. "Sorry, Lao Ji. Sorry you didn't get to chat with the 8-pack hunk, what a disappointment for you." I thought, and replied, "Fine. When I get back, we'll get a divorce." After the message was sent, Ethan didn't reply right away. At this hour he was probably still enjoying some tender moments. I didn't wait either. I put my phone on silent and face down on the nightstand. Nothing was better than getting my beauty sleep. The next day I slept until well past noon. When I checked my phone, Ethan had sent several messages in a row. Divorce? You're finally willing to sign? What do you mean wait until you come back? I'm home, where are you? Where did you go? Claire, you didn't come home last night? Pick up the phone. Claire, are you dead? I swiped through the screen without expression, too indifferent to respond. I began packing my bags, preparing to return. The plane landed. I messaged Ethan, where are you? He replied almost instantly. At the office. I didn't answer. I grabbed a car and raced back to my former home as fast as I could. I opened the wardrobe and began packing. I'd asked a friend to rent a one-bedroom apartment for me. I planned to move into the new place after signing the divorce papers that afternoon. Things were progressing so quickly it even surprised me. In my past life, I exhausted myself and endured endless humiliation but could never break free from the shackles. In this life, astonishingly, within just a few days I methodically dismantled, peeled away, and prepared to leave. I couldn't help but sigh, old me, so you're this powerful after all. Ever since I found out Ethan cheated, I've stormed into his company countless times. Each visit came with hysterical fights. I've smashed glass here, torn up documents, damaged walls, like an out-of-control lunatic. From top to bottom, probably no one in the company didn't know, Mr. Ethan's wife was a disgracefully unrefined madwoman. Now, when I step into the office, gazes gather on me from all directions. Curious ones, disdainful ones, those waiting for a spectacle. The elevator doors open. I step in, and a few employees who had been waiting for the elevator follow. In the cramped space, low murmurings rise. She's back again, guess which window she plans to smash this time? TSK, the construction crew in charge of the office fit-out must be making a fortune off her, right? Everyone quiet down, the show is about to start again. Laughter wrapped around me in the confined space. I didn't lose my composure like before. Instead, buoyed by the slight weightlessness as the elevator ascended smoothly, I gave a soft laugh. I turned around calmly and swept my gaze over their faces with composure. I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. I'm not here today to smash things. I'm here to talk divorce with your Mr. Ethan. Ding, the moment my words fell, the elevator reached the target floor. I stepped out and strode quickly toward the end of the corridor. I pushed open the office door. What met my eyes were two people in an intimate pose. Luna was sitting sideways on Ethan's lap. Seeing me, her cheeks flushed, she startled up and snapped, "Sister Claire, you two talk, I'll go out first." Her words were garbled and she kept her head down. No need. My voice was surprisingly calm. You sit down, it's fine. My gaze passed over her and landed on Ethan's face. He, on the other hand, was very composed. I pulled a document from my bag and laid it gently on the table. The agreement your lawyer gave me earlier, I've read it. I met his slightly mocking gaze. Ethan, since you're the one at fault, you can't just give me 10 million. I paused, then stated my terms, I want 30 million. You agree, and at 9 tomorrow morning we'll meet at the Civil Affairs office. Ethan laughed as if he'd heard a joke. He tightened his arm and drew Luna, who was trying to pull away, closer into his embrace. Claire, the hard-earned money I gave you, 10 million, was because of our past, to save you some dignity. And you still dare ask for 30 million? Have I been too lenient with you these past years, letting you forget your place? How greedy. I looked into his eyes. The pair I had once been most infatuated with now contained only calculation and indifference. I suddenly remembered the early days of his startup, when I gave up my beloved photography, accompanying him day and night to meet clients and inspect factories, putting on smiles, drinking until my stomach bled. I remember waiting 4 whole hours downstairs at his company's building so I could help him negotiate a partnership. I gave him all my dowry and savings to start his business. It wasn't until these past 2 years, after he'd finally found his footing, that I slowly returned to working in photography. In the end, I was left with the verdict of being greedy. He had long since forgotten. Or perhaps he never thought it worth remembering. I didn't argue. Rehashing old debts would only make me look like a resentful woman, it would be utterly pointless. I laughed at myself, pulled over a guest chair and sat down opposite him, composing my posture. It's okay, Ethan. I have all the time in the world. And, I narrowed my eyes, my phone is full of intimate photos of you and Luna, and some of other people too. High-res, faces clearly visible. You know, if I post bits and pieces online every now and then, with a little write-up, aren't netizens these days obsessed with rich family scandals? Maybe I could even become an influencer off this, gain a lot of followers. The smile slid off Ethan's face. The air in the office went rigid in an instant. After a long while he suddenly scoffed, leaned back into the leather chair, and put on a blasé expression. Fine, post it. I have enough money to pull trending topics, delete posts, send lawyer letters. At worst we don't get divorced, honestly, I kind of like things as they are, each doing their own thing. He was probing my limits, and betting that I wouldn't dare push things to an all-or-nothing break. I met his gaze and ultimately gave in. The truth was, I didn't want to keep wasting time with him. 20 million. Take it or leave it. A brief silence. After weighing the pros and cons, Ethan nodded. Objective accomplished. I picked up my bag and headed for the door. 9 tomorrow morning, Civil Affairs Office. Don't be late. Outside the office building, the afternoon sun was a bit dazzling. Yet I felt unusually light, as if the air itself carried freshness and freedom. I didn't waste any time and immediately contacted a moving company. Watching my luggage fill my little place, joy welled up inside me. Tomorrow, I would be free. I met a friend, got a stylish new haircut, and went shopping for a few new outfits. I bought a bag as a reward for my old self. I planned to greet that brand new me with a brand new look. The next day I put on careful makeup and showed up at the Civil Affairs Bureau on time. Ethan was leaning against the car door. When he saw me his expression clearly faltered for a moment, a look mixed with surprise and an indescribable stunningness. He came over, trying for a casual tone but still carrying that habitual dad vibe critique. Claire, you do clean up nicely, you'd look even better in a white dress. I couldn't help rolling my eyes. Who cares what you think? You. He was choked off, his face suddenly looking ill. I no longer looked at him and walked through the doors of the Civil Affairs Office. The clerk picked up the seal. I watched with a face full of expectation. At that moment, someone grabbed my long hair from behind and yanked hard. A ripping, searing pain shot across my scalp. The person had an enormous grip. The force dragged me and my chair down with a savage yank. The back of my head hit the cold tile with a heavy thud. Darkness pressed at the edges of my vision, and my ears buzzed. I forced my eyes open and saw my parents' faces contorted with fury. Before I could speak, my father's hands clamped onto my arms like iron tongs and roughly hauled me up off the ground. My mother stood beside him, unleashing a torrent of abuse. Divorce? You dare ask for a divorce? You worthless money loser. Do you think we married you off easily? How dare you bring up divorce? You should be grateful we're even letting you have a face, huh? Growing wings now, sneaking off behind our backs to file papers? You flipped on us. You brat, get back here and I'll break your legs. My father's strength was astonishing. No matter how I struggled, I couldn't move, I could only be half-dragged, half-lifted down the steps. When my mother looked at Ethan, her face changed in an instant, revealing a fawning smile. Ethan, I'm so sorry, truly so sorry. My daughter has been out of her mind lately, talking nonsense. Don't worry, we'll take her home and discipline her properly. I guarantee she will never dare bother you again. This marriage won't be dissolved, absolutely not. As she spoke, she hurried to keep up with my father. Together they forced me into the back seat of the car parked by the roadside. Bang! The car door was slammed shut and locked. I flung myself to the window, pounding on the glass with all my might. The Civil Affairs Bureau shrank and receded in my view. It finally disappeared. Almost, just a little farther. Why do they have the right to do this to me? My parents dragged me home, half pulling, half shoving. No sooner had the door shut than the curses started. My younger brother lounged on the sofa with his legs crossed, lazily cracking sunflower seeds, putting on an expression as if he were watching a show. Has a donkey kicked you in the head? You actually dared to ask Ethan for a divorce? At your age you don't still believe in love, do you? A vein bulging at Dad's temple, he snarled, spitting so close to my face I could feel the droplets. Love? Love my ass. Can love put food on the table or pay the bills? A son-in-law like Ethan, nobody in their right mind could even dream of reaching that level, and you're pushing him away. I rubbed the back of my head where a dull pain still throbbed. It felt like a lump was swelling there. I looked up and saw my parents' twisted faces. My voice was dry and weak. Is money more important than me? Mom laughed aloud, snorting in contempt as she looked at me. You? What are you even? Without Ethan, you're nothing. My eyes widened, and the blood in my body seemed to freeze. The disgust and contempt in their gazes pricked my heart like needles. Seeing that I stayed silent, they assumed I had given in and escalated their lecturing. Men, it's nothing if they play around outside. As a wife, your duty is to take care of him at home and hurry up and bear a son to tie him down. If he comes home, you ought to be grateful and serve him well. That's your blessing. Ethan wanting you is his favor. Don't be ungrateful. A blessing? Gratitude? The fury I'd suppressed for 2 lifetimes finally broke through all reason. Why the hell? I sprang to my feet and, with every ounce of strength, overturned the coffee table. Glasses, the fruit plate, the ashtray shattered everywhere, sunflower seed shells skittering in every direction. Under the astonished gazes of the family, I stormed into the kitchen, grabbed the kitchen knife, and held it tight. I turned back and stared at them, hard. This is Rich. He cheats and you defend him? Fine, then go live with him. We're all human, why should I bow and scrape to please him? He's Ethan, who does he think he is? They were cowed by the knife in my hand, momentarily struck speechless. So this is all about putting me down, huh? I raised my voice, pouring out years of pent-up grievance and anger. You think I'm worthless, that I can't survive without a man, right? I bent to pick up the mop from the floor, a knife in one hand, the mop in the other. My gaze swept the living room. The 70-inch LCD TV was bought with the prize money from my first photography award, the double-door fridge I saved up for by taking weekend shoots, everything in this house, from the big furniture and appliances to the smallest pots and pans, I bought. This home. What in it didn't I buy? I swung the mop and smashed it into that expensive TV. Bang, crash. The screen shattered on impact. You don't seriously think any of this was Ethan's charity, do you? Clang. I struck the refrigerator door again, leaving a deep dent. Using my things, spending my money, and they still have the nerve to look down on me? I cursed as I destroyed everything in my path. Dad's face went ashen with fury. He leapt up as if about to strike, grabbed the mop handle in the corner, but stopped dead when he saw the gleaming kitchen knife in my hand. My mother wailed and cursed at me, calling me a white-eyed wretch, crazy, and sinful. My younger brother, for fear of being accidentally hurt, ran back to his room. This chaotic and desperate farce finally ended with the arrival of the police. Probably a neighbor, unable to bear the disturbance, reported it. At the police station, my parents screamed at me and demanded that the officers take me away. I immediately showed the police the purchase records on my phone. Officer, I can provide purchase histories and payment receipts for all the damaged items here, they are all my personal property. I can do whatever I want with my own things. What's wrong with that? The facts are clear, the ownership is unambiguous. The police understood the situation and could not punish me for dealing with my own property. My parents, seeing their scheme fail, trembled with rage. Pointing at my nose, they shouted, "Unfilial daughter! We raised you in vain. Get out. We'll pretend we never had a daughter like you." I looked at them coldly and brushed the dust from my clothes. Fine. Then as you wish. From now on I'll consider myself an orphan. You, too, can pretend you never had me. I finished speaking, left the police station, hailed a taxi, and didn't look back at them. Once inside, I collapsed into the seat, utterly drained. My parents favored my brother over me, their eyes and hearts belonged only to him. This wasn't news to me. I had once harbored a ridiculous sliver of hope. Now the mask was torn off. Fine. Finally, I could say a complete, irrevocable goodbye to the thing called family. I leaned against the window and, to the battered yet stubbornly resilient self inside me, I whispered, "Old you really, have been so brave." Just then, my phone rang. It was my friend. Claire. Her voice was bright, full of energy. "Wanna go hiking tonight? Let's check out the city lights, then watch the sunrise in the morning. The light at this season is unreal, perfect for photos." Sure. I agreed without thinking. I needed an all-out dash. I needed to stand on high ground and look out into the distance. After hanging up, I glanced at the time on my phone. The Civil Affairs office was still open. A powerful impulse seized me. "Master," I straightened up, "don't go to that address. Please turn around. Now, there's still time to get a divorce." I pushed open Ethan's office door and said straight away, "Go get a divorce." He looked up at me, clearly taken aback for a moment. Then a sneer spread across his face. "A divorce? Have you forgotten how embarrassing you were this morning?" I stepped up to his desk, planted my hands on the edge, and leaned over him. "Don't think I don't know you told them on purpose." Ethan's eyes flickered, he awkwardly cleared his throat and avoided meeting my gaze. "Divorce is a serious matter, of course the elders need to agree. Besides, Claire, why must we force it this far? Isn't this fine? We each do our own thing, don't interfere with one another. If you want, you can even find someone outside." "Ethan," I cut him off, my voice low but cold, "I don't have the time or the interest to play your games. Listen to me, today, this marriage ends. If you look for any excuse to delay, or try any tricks, I'll package up the intimate photos of you and Luna, and you with others, and send them to every single employee at the company, from janitors to executives, not one missed. I don't care about the consequences. At worst it's an invasion of privacy and some damages, I can pay that. But have you thought about what happens when the whole company, along with your partners and rivals, gleefully devour the salacious gossip about Mr. Ethan? Your face, your company's stock price, the carefully cultivated image you've worked for, what then?" Ethan's expression darkened, he stared at me intently. After a long moment he ground his teeth and said, "Claire, you disgust me. I never thought you'd stoop to something so despicable. Leave if you want. Go right now." Just what I wanted. This time, there were no obstacles. Once the red booklet was in hand, her vision blurred instantly. Scalding liquid welled from her eyes and fell in heavy drops onto the certificate. Ethan watched from the side and sneered, "What? Regretting it? Changing your mind now, tearing up the papers?" I could still. No, I wiped my tears hard and shook my head. "I'm happy." I clutched the divorce certificate as if it were a treasure. "I'm finally free. How wonderful. Old self. We have finally left behind all the people and things that caused us pain." That very night, I shouldered the heavy camera gear, met up with my friend, and began our night climb. The mountain path was rough, and our breath turned to white mist in the cold air. At dawn I captured a series of majestic sunrise photos. The first ray of morning light tore through the clouds, as if opening the curtain on a brand new life for me. I posted the one I liked best on social media. Unexpectedly, the photo went viral. Viewers were moved by that life force breaking free of the darkness and began liking and sharing. I seized the moment and followed up by posting the Red Aurora series I had shot in Mo, which looked like a phoenix rising from the ashes. My account took off completely. At 30, I had finally made a small name for myself in the photography world. It was not just recognition of my technique but felt like a belated echo of fate. Riding that momentum, I opened a photography studio. On the very first day of business, an unexpected client arrived. She was the daughter of a locally prominent tycoon, Miss Victoria. With a gentle, refined air, she wanted me to shoot her wedding photos. I was overjoyed. If I could do a good job, with Miss Victoria's connections and influence, the studio's future clientele would be all but guaranteed. So I poured all my enthusiasm into it, researching and devising a shoot that suited her temperament. I spent an entire night just preparing the script and set designs, striving for absolute perfection. However, on the third day, Miss Victoria came to me of her own accord. She wore an apologetic expression. "Miss Claire, I'm sorry. I don't think I can hire you to shoot the wedding photos. You can keep the deposit as my breach fee, no need to return it." I paused, my heart dropping, but I kept a professional demeanor and asked softly, "Miss Victoria, could you tell me why? Was there something in the proposal I gave that you were unhappy with?" She looked embarrassed, hesitated for a moment, then spoke frankly. "I mentioned you to my fiancé. He said he'd heard of you. Your ex-husband Ethan is well known in their circle. And some of your past, they know about that too." She stopped, her tone edged with a little reluctance. "My fiancé says your ex cheated on you, and while your reaction was intense and perhaps understandable, the problem is, you've had a failed marriage. He's worried that someone whose own marriage wasn't happy would have a hard time truly understanding and capturing the feeling of happiness in a marriage, and wouldn't be able to shoot the kind of sweetness we're looking for." I listened quietly, my fingers curling slightly under the table before slowly relaxing. So that was it. Even after the divorce, that past still followed me like a shadow. I didn't immediately argue or complain. I simply took a deep breath, lifted my head, and looked at her with calm, sincere eyes. "Miss Victoria, thank you for your honesty. I also understand your fiancé's concerns. But I'd like to make one point clear. As a photographer, what I have never captured is the abstract concept of a happy marriage. What I capture are happy people, the genuine, touching emotions that lovers reveal in a single moment. I admit my marriage failed. But there were countless moments in my life when I felt happy, and through my lens I have witnessed and frozen so many others' moments of joy. The misfortune of my marriage is a completely different matter from whether I have the ability to recognize happiness and capture emotion." I looked into her eyes and continued, "I believe you decided to enter marriage not because you foresaw guaranteed happiness in the future. On the contrary, it was because you are truly feeling happiness right now that you made that choice, wasn't it? Happiness is the cause, marriage is the effect. My misfortune was simply the effect of that particular relationship, but when I decided to marry, the longing and joy I felt then were no different from how you feel now." Of course, I slowed my tone, giving her full respect. "You have every right to choose a photographer who makes both you and your fiancé feel secure and compatible. Whatever you decide in the end, I fully respect it." Miss Victoria listened, fell silent for a moment, and the hesitation in her eyes seemed to loosen a bit. After a long while, she gently nodded. "Miss Claire, I understand what you mean. I'll think it over again." After Miss Victoria left, the friend who had been holding her breath beside us let her shoulders drop and sighed. "Ah, the cooked duck still flew away. The prejudices in this circle are really hard to break." I turned and patted her shoulder, smiling instead. "It's okay. Life allows for a lot of mistakes. If this path doesn't work, we'll take another. At worst the studio closes and I can become a fashion photographer, travel the world, be freer. No big deal." She was speaking when her phone lit up and a new message popped up. It was from the couple they'd met under the auroras in Mo last time. "Sister, I saw your post. Congratulations on your studio opening. The photos you took of us in Mo, we love them so much. We've already had them developed and hung them in our bridal room. We're getting ready to get married. We wanted to consult you about wedding photos. Do you have availability?" My friend and I exchanged a glance, and the next second we were hugging each other excitedly, jumping up and down on the spot. "Wonderful. Look. After mountains and rivers block the way and you think there is no road, beyond the willows and flowers there is another village. Miss Victoria ultimately did not choose me as her wedding photographer. But fortunately, the couple I met in Mo firmly chose me. The wedding photos I carefully took for them were joyfully shared across social media. That series of natural, sincere, and story-filled images brought unexpected attention to my studio. My career gradually got on track and prospered. And I was filled with energy. Because this time I was fighting for my own career. For myself. Later, I took part in a live interview. The host asked me, "Miss Claire, actually many people know that your ex-husband Mr. Ethan is very well known in the business world. Online, there have also been some, well, rather emotional videos and photos of you from the past circulating. About that quite famous past, do you mind talking about it?" I looked into the camera, my smile unchanged. Of course I don't mind. That was a part of my life. The host then followed with a sharper question. So, how did you make up your mind back then to leave your ex-husband and turn to a career in photography? That transition must have been extremely difficult, right? I thought for a moment, my tone calm. I suppose it's because I've finally figured it out. A person's eyes are meant to see the stars and the sea, to watch the changing seasons, to witness the ordinary fireworks of life, not to keep checking whether someone has replied. Photography, in a sense, is an effort to restore and freeze those real, existing beauties that the eye can perceive. So I've decided to take my gaze off one person and turn it back toward the vast world. At that moment a conspicuous comment scrolled across the screen, dripping with malice, putting on an independent heroine act in real life, and yet back then she was practically dying for a man. This is just worth a look and a laugh. The host's expression shifted slightly. I looked at the comment and suddenly laughed. I turned to the camera, expression calm, not a trace of offended anger. Actually, I think those past experiences, even if some were not very dignified, you could even say utterly embarrassing, they nonetheless truly shaped who I am today. The host couldn't help but press further. Seeing others judge your past pain like that, doesn't it make you angry? No. I shook my head, eyes steady. Because the person who did those things back then was me. Head over heels in love, draining all my passion and dignity for someone who wasn't worth it, that was me. I don't feel there's anything to deny or hide about that. Even if someone were to mock me with those things to my face, I wouldn't be angry. I paused, my words clear and strong, because I unconditionally accept every single thing I've done, every step I've taken. The good, the bad, the glorious, the shameful, all of it together has pieced together the person sitting here now. At that moment, a comment flew across the screen. "Sister, you put it so well, I love you. You were the heroism of my girlhood." I looked at the message and couldn't help smiling. Gently and solemnly I said, "Thank you. I love myself very much too. But, little one, your heroism is yours, you and yourself are the ones who truly stand together through thick and thin." There was a momentary hush in the livestream room, then sincere applause broke out. When the interview ended, I walked out of the radio station building. Just as I stepped down the stairs, a figure emerged from the shadow beside them and blocked my way. It was Ethan. He seemed to have been waiting here for me on purpose. I didn't stop walking and tried to go around him, but he stepped sideways and stood in front of me again. "Claire," he began, his voice a little hoarse, "I'm sorry. I've thought about it over and over, and I still feel like I owe you a proper apology." I stopped walking and looked up at him. Suddenly it all felt a bit laughable. "An apology? Ethan, spare me your cheap contrition. Your I'm sorry has long meant nothing to me." I watched the flicker of astonishment cross his face and continued calmly, "The one you should feel worst about isn't the me now. It's the person you were 10 years ago in that rented room. You betrayed the promises you once made, and you betrayed the self that hadn't yet been stained by fame and fortune. So keep your apology, for him." When I finished speaking, I no longer looked at the complex expression on his face. I walked around him and headed for the car parked by the road. The night breeze brushed my cheeks, bringing a coolness. After that night, Ethan and I had no further contact. The next time I saw him was in the business section of the social news. The headline read, "Renowned entrepreneur Ethan suspected of tax evasion, referred by tax authorities to the Procuratorate for lawful investigation." The accompanying photo showed him being led away by law enforcement. His head was bowed, there was no trace left of the confident, spirited man he once was. The report also mentioned that the whistleblower was his former lover and assistant. They fell out over an unequal split of profits. His company had plunged into chaos as a result. I saw the news alert while I was in the studio culling client photos. My finger paused on the screen for 2 seconds, and then I laughed out loud. Good. What goes around comes around. I put my phone down, opened a shopping app, and cheerfully began picking out a gift for myself. I should buy myself a bag to reward old me. Buy old G a pair of professional hiking boots, for the next time we go to the snowy mountains to shoot. Stock me up with 2 jars of top-tier anti-aging cream. Buy me a camera. 1 more hot pot. As for my parents, they worried themselves sick over that hopeless son of theirs, begging everyone they could think of and even selling off family property. They tried to reach me by phone and text, but I had already blocked them. Later they took me to court, demanding child support. The ruling ordered me to pay 400 yuan a month. I am a law-abiding citizen, I obey the ruling to the letter, paying every month, no more, no less. Except that whether those 400 yuan came at the beginning of the month, in the middle, or on the very last day depended entirely on my mood that month. Later on, my photography career grew busier and bookings were scheduled as far as 6 months ahead. But I still made it a point every year to carve out some time to travel and shoot. My lens has been trained on the lone smoke and setting sun of the northwestern deserts and has captured the misty rains of the Jiangnan water towns. Through my perspective, I photographed this vast and beloved landscape that I hold so dear. Alright. That's where the story ends. One last line, say it again, love you, old G. See you tomorrow.